It's Friday afternoon. It's a good day. It's always a good day on the XFL Markcast.
Well, it's Friday morning. Our episodes go live Friday morning. It's Thursday morning right now. We're good. It's
We're good.
bright and early. I know. I wish I didn't start posting the videos at 7 a.m. Like I wish I had in my head months ago been like noon, because it is. I get up every day at 6:30 and get everything ready to go for the video.
Well, we definitely appreciate your hard work here on the XFL Markcast. Of course, Reed is the heart of the operation, where I tend to think
You're the brains.
Maybe not the brains. I'm just kind of the resident jerk. But that being said, want to thank you guys for tuning in for another episode. I'm wearing my Vegas Golden Knights jersey, celebrating. Sorry, my friend Alma. She's a Sharks fan, but Vegas put some hurt on the San Jose team last night, and I'm happy for my West Coast team. I'm sorry, I will still be a Vegas fan when Seattle comes in the league. You know, it's my West Coast team. I have, of course, my East Coast team, Devils. But yeah, celebrating that, and I think we're going to talk about the Golden Knights in this show.
Yeah, we got a big timey interview coming up. Sorry, I got some breaking news. I'll plug in here in a minute. We got a great interview with Jason Gregor coming up. We get into a little NHL stuff. Jason's great. It's been like a month getting him scheduled to come on. We really appreciate that. And then we also have a super fan, Josh McGee, coming on. Jason went so long. I don't want this to be like a 3-hour episode. So we're going to post, I'm going to post it and then link it in the description. Josh was at location, like for the first ever Grey Cup. So we get into all that. It's kind of interesting. If you want some bonus content, we're going to put that on there, but I don't want to kill Paul with the audio length today and trying to produce everything. So we're going to put that in, but Jason Gregor is great. And then I have Max, listener Max, tweeting me right now. I guess as we record, probably while we record today, they're going to announce the Pac-12 commissioner. That's probably not going to be Oliver Luck.
Damn.
So don't at me. We're doing our best. Paul's got to work tonight. We're recording right now. But if Luck comes out, if Pat commish, or maybe Oliver Luck got it, and then we say no. But it sounds like he's saying that from John Wilner, there's a 99% that nobody in college sports has ever heard of the next Pac-12 commissioner. So and it will be, maybe we'll get an update here later in the show. But anyway. Also, yes, thank you all for our subscribers. I wanted to plug at the top. Don't forget, we have our Jousters. If you missed the episode last week, I don't know what you were doing with your life. We have our Jousters merch we're giving away. We're almost at 1,300 subscribers, so we need 200 more. When we get to 1,500, we're going to give away the Jousters merch. We got 2 shirts here. So, like and subscribe and share the video. I was thinking about this. If you like the video, if you see it on Twitter or Facebook or something, share it around. I mean, I share it. Paul shares it. Hopefully our guests and everybody share it. But, if you're a fan of the show, just give it a little retweet. Get it out. Expand your circle. It's not going to hurt or cost you anything, and we appreciate that. Also, at this point, I'm going to put listener Max finally got off his butt and sent in his photo of his hat giveaway from our big 1,000. I mean, how many weeks now have we been at 1,000 subs? But I'm going to put that photo right now. Max just sent me a very nice photo. We're going to, okay, we see. Okay, there we go.
To that point about the Pac-12 commissioner, it is MGM Resorts president George Kickoff. I hope that I'm saying it right.
That's fine.
He took, I don't know what BAM is, but generated billions for BAM, did a big deal with Hulu. And this is the quote. I'll censor it because we try to stay away from expletives here. Someone said, he's proven he knows how to get S done. He's not Larry Scott. He's going to listen, collaborate, and build trust with ADs. George, first thing you need to do is get that Pac-12 network on DirecTV. That's been a major thing where schools haven't had that revenue source of additional TV revenue from DirecTV because the Pac-12 network hasn't been on there. So apparently this guy, MGM Resorts president George Kickoff, is the new Pac-12 commissioner. Right. Interesting pick. Someone who's not sports related, someone who's entertainment related.
And Hulu, that's good. I mean, that's good Hulu. Getting on the stuff. Anyway, so hopefully we'll see here. But anyway, just timing all that out. Just real quick reactions to last week. I had so many people comment. Jenna cried at the end of the episode with our Jesters merch reveal that we did not get our Spring League Jouster's jersey. I had Spring League announced this week that they're going to try to open up a merch store and sell some like game worn jerseys later this season, I guess. And I had people on Twitter be like, they can't even get the XFL Markcast. Like, what is going on? So, but Jenna literally commented that she cried at the end of the episode. So Brian, if you're listening, you made Jenna cry. And Max is confirming that George Cup up is, yep, we got it. So Max confirms the report that we just gave. So this happened in real time. But anyway, don't make our listeners and viewers cry. Brian Wood, CEO of the Spring League. What are you doing with your life? So anyway, that was...
Give us some players. Give us some players to talk to, Brian Woods.
That was kind of my question at the top of the show here is like, what are we doing? Like, that was kind of like real talk. And then I wanted to do we have a little preamble today before we get into everything. Like Spring League, they don't seem like they care about their viewers. CFL draft, like nobody cares. And it's hard for me and I know you feel the same way, that it's like we are at the front lines, like arguing and fighting and people are defending and all these things. And it doesn't seem like their leagues very much care about anything.
I couldn't argue that point at all. I mean, you said everything I would want to say, just same brain right now.
Yeah. It's
there's nothing to add to that.
It's hard. I posted our wonderful chat with Dan Ralph from 2 weeks ago. I posted it this week on YouTube, but then I shared it, and I have to write like YouTube. You write like, okay, what's the description, whatever. And for the title, I wrote something like, "What would you give up? What are we willing to give up in the CFL game for an XFL merger?" And I am stop messaging me, Max, right now. I said, "What would you give up for a CFL merger?" Every comment, nothing, not, zero, nada, nothing.
Zeri. One said Zeri.
I go, I get that. I understand that. But it's troubling to me when it seems like for both leagues, CFL, Spring League, and I would say XFL too, it seems like the fans care very much more about what is going on. And we get into that with Jason too, but it seems like the fans very much care what is going on more than the leagues do at this point.
Stop clutching your pearls. Stop putting your head in the sand. We have always said, and we'll say it again with Jason, what we'd like to see happen. And, the people that are covering the XFL have no, like, oh no, it's got to be this. We don't have that. We don't have that, for lack of a better term, ego about the idea of these two leagues merging and what we need to keep it as Americans. Love all your rules. Keep them all. Even the Rouge. Keep them all. I don't care. I just want something that works that we can watch in the spring without without Arash saying Spring League football never works. Great.
That is the funniest thing. We were talking with Josh in the bonus interview. That I said, well, this is our first ever on-site location. And Paul pointed out that Arash with the duel, I assumed that was like the Sportsnet office that Arash was at when we had our big duel. Paul thinks it was a library.
I think it was a college library. It looked like a college library to me.
That's wild. Arash had a big duel in a college library. That is wild. No, and just one other comment on this before we get it. Someone posted today on one of our videos we shared. He's like, I just don't get where all this hate is coming from. Like from the CFL. I'm like, I exactly right. Like exactly. I don't like. There's no whatever with that. Maybe we get into the three Downy stuff later, talking about hate and things like that. But anyway, I want to get into the bulk of the show. But one quick note. God bless you. I listened to a lot of other alternative football podcasts this week. I listened to all of them. I had a lot of driving. If you're recording when like the Spring League is going on or whatever else is going on, nobody cares about it on the podcast. Like when you're commenting on the game, a lot of podcasts were recorded this week when like the Spring League games were on. Nobody stop recording and talking about what you're watching while you're, and I know, of course, I'm just texting Max and we're talking about the breaking news, but nobody cares about that. So there was a lot of alternative football podcasts this week that were recorded during the Spring League. And I do not care a week later what is going on while you're watching the game, while recording and commenting on the game. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I hope they do. And isn't it also ironic that a loudmouth like Arash was in a library? Because you're supposed to be quiet in a library.
It's wild. I mean, now that I'm going to go back and if someone could Zakruder that, right? Zakruder, the Zakruder, go back. I think you're right. I thought he was. I was like, oh, I was like, wow, Sportsnet has a nice office. No, that is absolutely, because he did Rod's show from his his house yesterday that I incepted on. I said, I go, Rod, give Arash a year for us. And then they talked about XFL for 8 minutes. So Rod and producer Clark, if you need us to come on and produce your show, I'm happy to give you show ideas. I'm kidding. But they did like 8 minutes on the XFL. And all I did was try to say hi to Arash. So
you're really, you want to, they're accusing you of taking over their Canadian game, and now you want to take over Rod's show. Disrespect from Reed Johnson here, folks.
The title episode today is going to be, is this a football league? And I got excited last night about this. We didn't ever talk about why I named the episode last week, presenting the CFL, presenting the CFL draft, but that's beside the point. There's been a lot of talk this week. Is the XFL a league? Is the Spring League a league? Is the CFL a league? What is a football league to you, Paul Sanchez?
A football league to me is a corporation or nonprofit organization that either awards franchises or owns franchises of like trademarks and slogans and moldy jerseys. And I wish I had my SpongeBob mocking meme that you got me. Yeah. I wish I would have that I opened before. Okay, we're not going to shame me anymore for opening it before I got on the podcast. But there are assets, intellectual property assets too, that a corporation or nonprofit organization holds, and that is still a league. I mean, they're saying it's not a league because it hasn't played, there's no more snaps of football being taken. Well, dude, I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful here, but one league actually took at least one snap last year, and it wasn't the CFL.
Yeah, and this is no shade. I mean, I think it's a good discussion to have because CFL Reddit, Braden's been on the show. He was commenting on the merger stuff, and I said, I go, if the Spring League is a league, I think the XFL is a league, and I'm not. You can say that the Spring League is not a league, and that's fine. That's where like just my question is. I'm like, and if the CFL that hasn't played in 2 years. Some of the, AJ Jakubek was on Rod's show after our show and was talking about how some of the franchises are valued at like $1, right? And so it's like, well, that was his word. I mean, not my words. But AJ goes, some of the leagues, some of them are valued much higher. But we're going to talk about Edmonton here, and obviously Edmonton is worth a lot. But anyway, so it's tricky. But I think that the XFL. You could, conceivably, if the Spring League can draft and get players in a couple weeks and get rolling. I know the XFL is a lot bigger, but I think
CFL.
The XFL would have a much bigger scope than the Spring League, but I think like you could also ramp up. So I'm just saying, like, I think we're all like leagues. But anyway, I just thought that was a good title for the episode, and I like the meme of the guy with the butterfly. Like, what is this? What is this football league?
You sent me you're like, what do you think the title of this episode is going to be? And you sent me the meme, and I was like. The butterfly was the government, and the kid's like asking, is this a non-interest loan for a 108-year league because we're a 108-year-old league?
Yeah. It'll be good. Anyway, so thank you all for the preface. I have my Dorothy is high on the Zoa too. Dorothy had one of the super berries, so I'm shaking everything. There. Ooh, that was a good pop. There we go.
Remember, plug your nose, drink.
She the first thing she goes, oh, this smells really good. Yeah, I'm just saying. Anyway, on with the show. Thank you for the preface. News. What do you think about this? Edmonton football team had their big annual general meeting.
They lost. They posted a $7.1 million loss in 2020. Spending money on what?
Yeah, we talked with Jason about that. It's like, again, this idea of losing money, like losing less money to play versus not play. What would the losses have been if they had played? I mean, it's Jason we talk about this, like, what, you're not paying the players. Like, what are we? I mean, obviously you assume like some stadium upkeep and staff, but that's a lofty loss. We might have to have Dave Campbell coming back on and talking about this. I did pre-book Dave for when Edmonton announces the team name. Dave will come on our show that week. I have pre-booked him. I've said, Dave, whenever that comes, I've heard rumors. Rod thinks it might be like June 1st, 2nd. Dave did not corroborate that, but I have Dave pre-booked for that. So I thought that was a good get for us to pre-book Dave Campbell for that. But anyway, they had their annual general meeting. We talked about this with Jason. They got kind of a government loan. They still lost money. They have a war chest. But again, we've had Winnipeg announce kind of their $10 million loss. Edmonton with a 7.1. I mean, these are not good things to be talking about. Do you have any other takeaways that we did not get into, Jason, later on this?
I mean, all I can say is they're a 108-year-old league. They're just going to go ask for money based on the fact that they're a 108-year-old league.
Well, it's getting, it's dicey. Another quote, Dave had tidbit. Dave obviously covered the league. The current board treasurer and incoming board chair, Ian Murray, with Edmonton, he says a 14-game season is still the goal. However, several other scenarios are being looked at, which includes possibly canceling the season. Now, this did go kind of big. Like Rod talked about this. Some other people talked about this because there haven't really been any, and obviously the Edmonton board treasurer is not like Ambrosi or someone like in the thing, but the idea that we even like mentioned like canceling the season has never, like, I think that's the first time that has publicly come out. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, I think the most realistic scenario here isn't a 14 game season. I think it's a 9-game season. I think that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to end up happening. They can't cancel this season.
God bless them. If this doesn't go, like, I don't know, man.
Canadians are polite, but they're going to have a meltdown of epic proportions because honestly, like, at what point is it even a league if you're canceling 2 years in a row? What point is it even a league at that point? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the CFL. I'm wondering, that's got to be the death knell. If they do not have a season this year, they are done. It is over. It is a wrap.
Yeah, they said, and this is Ian Murray again, he goes, a canceled season is a very last resort. If it comes to that, Edmonton football will be in a position to meet all of their obligations and be ready to play in 2022. I mean, for them, like the money, and for some of the teams, the money is an issue. For some of the teams, it's just the visibility. And it was astounding to me, the quote that Jason had in the interview coming up where, like, even if the CFL plays this year, they have a horrendous public PR image, like problem, because we're all talking about, if they don't play, Dan Ralph said a couple weeks ago, I mean, they're already in like a PR nightmare right now. And we're still like trying to play. So, the Edmonton president, Chris Preston, he thinks that they're going to have a CFL schedule finalized by the end of May. I would hope so if they're kind of, that mid-June is kind of that drop dead date for if we're starting in August. But, Preston, the Edmonton president, the quote is, we still feel very confident in the August 5th start date, but then we have some other stories coming up to maybe go against that. But anything about that in the schedule?
I mean, it's lofty. It's very lofty. I think that when we talked to Jason about it, I think you have to see how the vaccine rollout is happening. I know it's getting better. Their case count is going down. Ontario is in another 2-week lockdown. They're going into June now, apparently, with their lockdowns. Many of my friends in Toronto are not happy with Mr. Ford. I think it all bases on how fast you guys get vaccines up there north of the border and reach that herd immunity, because California's been a great example. I don't mean to be that kind of guy that pumps California all the time, but we have the lowest numbers in the nation. I mean, I live in LA County. We're in the lowest tier. The next tier after this is full opening. Like, everything's done. Everything's off the table. Orange County, just south of me, they went into the yellow tier. That's the least restrictive tier. And I mean, it's a combination of eventually some of the population getting it, unfortunately, and then, the vaccines on top of that. That's the way out of this. And so hopefully Canada gets that under control. And then a 14-game season is very likely.
It is interesting. Obviously, the NFL released their schedule Wednesday as of this recording. Good Morning Football had a very interesting conversation today with two of the people that work on developing that schedule. And what was interesting to me is one of the gentlemen said, January 3rd or whenever the regular season ends, like we're working on this every day. Like, we're talking to, the TV partners, what games do they want to see? What are the marquee games? Like obviously this year it's Brady going back to New England, right? Like that's a marquee game. Okay. LA versus Detroit with Goff and Stafford. Okay. That's not this, but kind of a marquee game, right? Where's Aaron Rodgers going, right? There, all these things are working on. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah. And like the CFL, it's like none of, it's like, we're just trying to get by. I don't know. Like it just, you know what I mean? Like they're going through it like, and they've had 875 billion like machinations of the schedule and trying to like figure it out. And the CFL's like, well, we're working on it right now. And even Jason says in like, what are we doing right now? Like we're waiting, but what are we working on? Nothing's coming out, it would be nice to get a little bit more transparency, I think is one of the key words for today with that.
I think transparency has been a key word for quite some time when it comes to everything CFL related.
This next article we had, I want to try to get this Scott Stinson. He's with the National Post. He's with Post. I think he's with kind of with Dan Barnes, kind of in that whole thing. His quote, the headline was, "Is Canada headed towards another summer of canceled tournaments and shuttered stadiums?" In Ontario, it's clear optics are winning the day. It's stay-at-home order, but now, especially when several provinces have further limits on gatherings, the idea of doing any organized activities outside is not really doable.
Nope. It all comes again down to vaccines and the herd immunity idea, and hopefully, that's expedited. I think if there's any vaccine shortages whatsoever, if there's a warning sign that they're running out of vaccines and the stock is limited. I have a friend who got her first shot and she's waiting 2 months to get her second shot.
Wow.
That's a problem because they say Pfizer within 4 weeks, Moderna within 6. That's a problem. Yeah. Wait, no. Pfizer within 3 weeks, Moderna in 4. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Where did I get those numbers?
I got my second shot on Monday, so I'm like, boom.
What did you get, Moderna or
I got
Pfizer?
Yeah, but it was good. We talked about this. Arash tweeted, Lisa McLeod. We talked about her coming out again. It's going to be ambitious to have 5,000 fans gathered at CFL stadiums come August. She says, I don't see that at the moment.
I mean, she's going and saying the virus is going to make its own plans. Yeah. And the way the vaccines are going, she doesn't see 5,000 fans being in the stands. She doesn't see it. I mean, and I forgot to bring this up with Jason. Did I think that by the middle of May, Dodger Stadium would allow close groups of people who have proof of full vaccination to be in the stadium by May this year? I didn't think that was going to happen, but that's where we're at. So again, all depends on that timeline, getting the science out there, getting the vaccines done. I know people in Canada probably won't, argue the news about the vaccine, the worries, the concerns. They seem to be pretty level-headed when it comes to science, and I think that's what it boils down to: vaccine distribution.
Yeah, and we're going to get into this a little bit more later. We'll get through the guests, and then I have a little rant coming up. But BC and Ontario governments officially say they have not approved any return-to-play plans, and that the issue with that is TSN came out last week and said like all the provinces have approved plans. And that's not accurate. And so there was a lot of public pushback from a lot of the shows I was listening to and articles I was reading that people felt like that was disingenuous. So you have TSN, and obviously we've had TSN people on and the Rosh and whatever, but that was almost not like, well, it kind of was fake news. Like it kind of was like they were putting out this message that wasn't necessarily true, where we have at least 2 health officials saying that they have definitely not approved return to play plans for BC and Ontario, which are obviously large provinces with CFL teams. The other tweet I had here was Isaac. What is that last name? Boguch. He's a Canadian infectious disease physician and scientist. He had tweeted out, he's one of the guys, doing all this stuff. They've vaccinated 400,000 people. This was earlier this week, about 1% of the population. Over 40% of adults have at least a single dose, and they're ranked the third in G20 countries for percent of the population who have received at least 1 dose. And then Ontario says that 65% of adults will have their first vaccine dose by the end of May.
But it's the second one. That's the one that, And you could argue, they limited us. It seems like a lot of people in Canada are eligible for the vaccine, and they didn't think of like, well, we should probably tier it, where the older population gets it, and we have to make sure they get their second dose within a certain amount of time. It seems like everybody got theirs, and of course, my friend told me she's going to wait 2 months for her second dose. That's is the vaccine less effective in that case? I don't know. I don't know.
My last note here before we go to break, to go to Jason, the Calgary Stampede. I was like, oh, I guess because we hear the Calgary Stampeders all this. I'm like, oh, there is a Calgary Stampede. They were talking this week about how they call it the greatest outdoor show on earth is going ahead with modifications, and it's a lot of things. That obviously United States people would be used to, a lot of social distancing, a lot of spread out stuff like that. But everyone's trying to get through. My question is always, these stadiums and the outside and the NFL. I don't know if it's so much like in the stadium outside, but there's still a lot of congregating through like concessions and inside and bathrooms and things like that. So like, yeah, it's an outdoor stadium, but you know what I mean? Like that was the same with WrestleMania this year where they had everyone in Tampa, and then when it rained right before, like they pulled everybody inside, and you're like, well, but now we're all in like this closed space.
Florida. That doesn't believe in masks. Just saying.
Anyway, so that's that kind of stuff. We have a lot of other XFL, CFL stuff coming up after the break, but I figured we toss Jason, you can toss wonderful interview, and then we'll get some other stuff.
Yeah, here coming up after the break, Jason Gregor.
With the Jason Gregor Show. It's
Jason Gregor Show.
Perfect name.
Very good name with that. He's coming up right after this. Jason Gregor, host of the Jason Gregor Show. That's a perfect name for your show, the Jason Gregor Show. It's weekdays 2 to 6 on TSN 1260. You're also the co-host of the DFO Hockey Podcast, writing for the Nation Network, and also a PHWA member. Sorry, it's early in the morning. I want to make sure I get everything in there. Welcome to the show, Jason.
That's a real original name that I have. Thought a lot about it. So we actually changed that name. Originally, my show was Just a Game with Jason Gregor, but then they said it was too long, so changed that a few years ago.
Just to the Jason Gregor Show. I like it.
Yeah,
it's very simple.
Yeah,
we're not the lead there.
Hey, keep it simple, stupid is what they say. I can fall into that category, I think.
First and foremost, I kind of want to ask, how are you doing during all this pandemic stuff up there?
You know what? Overall, I feel I'm pretty lucky. I've been doing my show from home since March of 2020. Like I think, whatever, the season was canceled on the 12th, and I think the Friday I started doing my show from home, which it's not a real big difference. I've been doing live remotes for years for my show, but you're from home, so I changed. I got a stand-up desk here a while back, just so I don't have to sit down for the entire show and prepping and stuff. But you know what? I feel pretty good. I'm lucky. We have a family farm, so I was able to get outside lots, and I go to the farm, and there's no one else around there other than my mom and the animals. So I'm pretty sure I'm not getting COVID from the cows. So it's that part's been good. And I have a young son who's got a real. Kids, I learned a lot from kids. They don't like when school got canceled, he was just like, oh, well, I guess I'm doing school at home. And they don't focus on the negative for too long. So that's been really good. So just done a lot more outdoor activities, and, I'm tired of it. Let's be honest. I'm not going to lie. Like it'd be nice to go to a sporting event, to go to a concert. Hell, it'd be nice to go for dinner at your friend's house, not on the back deck. So I do look forward to all that, but I consider myself pretty lucky overall that I don't, I've gotten through everything fine, and business is still going good. So all in all, it's for a pandemic, I feel lucky compared to some people. I don't know, people that have to live in like a condo in downtown buildings where they don't have a lot of green space. As a farm kid, I would have a tough time with that.
Do you think, having lived through all the CFL stuff last year, and the loan that didn't come through and the bubble and all that stuff, what do you think that we're still talking about that now? That it's still like we don't know if a season's going to happen now a year later?
Well, I wasn't surprised when the CFL didn't play last year. Like they don't have $1 billion, multi-million-dollar TV contract. So how can you play without fans, right? Like the NHL played this year without fans, and they lost like $3.6 billion. Right? Like they've got billionaire owners. The CFL doesn't have that. And that doesn't mean like tons of businesses aren't running. I don't, the CFL to me is no different than a lot of other businesses who had to shut down, and they're more in the public eye. But when you look at it realistically, and then, you take away your sports excitement and wanting the game, I understand why they haven't played. My only concern, I don't know if the CFL has done a great job of outlining and being very honest and upfront and just say, you know what, if we can't play without fans. That's our financial model. And I think most people would understand it. Most businesses can't thrive without customers. So just because the NFL doesn't mean that other leagues are going to do it, right? So, each league's on their own. It doesn't make the CFL less in my mind. Anybody who judges anyone by the amount of money they make, I think is failing and losing out in life.
That's a good point. But speaking of losing money, this came out recently that Edmonton had posted a $7 million loss. And we were talking a little bit before the show. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I haven't had a few businesses and talking to accountants. I spoke to my accountant afterwards, Zach, because I said, well, so if you lost $7.1 billion, is that projected revenue or is that actual $7.1 million? Because if it is, and they didn't pay their players, I'm curious, unless they had tons of signing bonuses that were due, but I was told that those didn't get paid. So other than I know the coaches have guaranteed contracts, right? And Milanovic got $500,000, never coached a game. So that's unfortunate. But, how much more is staff making if it's 7.1 million? Because I know that, they laid off a lot of their staff members during this. So I'd like to know where that number came from and, why? Because it does seem a rather high number when you're like, your biggest expense was players. You're not paying your players. You didn't play any games. So unless lots of their guys had bonuses structured, and good for the players if they did, but I talked to the PA and lots of guys said they didn't get paid anything. So I'd have to dig deep on exactly where that figure came from, because it did catch me off guard a little bit. But every year I've seen, I've been to that AGM many years ago, and I remember they post a loss, and I'm like, what? You guys had 30,000 fans every game, and they posted a loss of like 150,000 or something like that, and I'd be like, well, how's that possible? So I'm not going to say people are lying, but there's different ways, I guess, to make the numbers look how you want. So that one's a little surprising to me. I would expect them to lose some money, but 7.1 mil, it just seemed high to me.
Is there some kind of audit process the league can go through to find out where they lost that money, or is it just?
Well, if the league wanted to, I'm sure it's like you'd have to have somebody, and I'm no accountant, right? And I asked my accountant the question just because he's a big sports fan, and we had a conversation about it, and he's like, well, you don't really know until you see all the numbers, but they'd have to look at, maybe they have a bunch of fees that we're unaware of, which is very possible they do. But I wondered how much of that was considered in, projected losses. And if that's the case, sure. But was it actually $7.1 million out of their savings account? Then, that's a big concern, because if that's the case, they're not going to be able to, how are these other teams surviving, right? Like Edmonton isn't owned by a billionaire owner, right? They're a publicly owned team. So where's that money going to come from? Now, I know they've had a really good war chest in Edmonton for a lot of time. They've been a successful franchise for a long, long time. But, I'd have to dig in. No one really knows, and no one ever really takes the time to dig deep on it. But you'd probably have to have somebody with much more financial acumen than myself to go over it with a fine-tooth comb to find out exactly, where that losses were coming from. Like, don't just say a loss, then come out and say why. Like, where was the loss? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, I think that it goes to speak to the greater issue of just transparency, I think, in general. And the focus on our show today is going to be that, where we have fans, with the CFL draft, arguing about everything. We're covering the spring league. Fans are wanting to be involved. And then it does seem like these leagues maybe don't want to have that transparency, which I get, right? But it seems to me right now, we're dealing with these fan bases that are more excited about the leagues than the leagues are. It is kind of the vibe that I'm getting from, hopping on with the CFL and all of that. I have the Edmonton, from the 3 Down Nation article. They just said that it was a net operating loss of 7.1, and they did have an assistance for some of that of a 2.5 million, which is interesting because we had talked about that last week, how some of the teams had gotten, like, we have PPP loans in the States for that. So it seems like part of that was mitigated. But yeah, it's a net operating loss of 7.1. So it is interesting there, that, and they do have a, sizable, backlog of money. Yeah.
No, Edmonton's done well financially for many years, right? Like they've for years, decades, they were the star franchise of the league. Their fans would tell you that maybe hasn't been the case over the last 15 years, from on-field success and off-field decision-making. That's a total different conversation. But your word about transparency, I think, is valid. I think CFL fans are diehard fans. Like, they really, the ones who are they care about their team. And it felt like they just weren't being told what was going on. Like, I think people respect honesty. You might not like the initial answer. If the commissioner comes out and says, we're not having a season, and these are the reasons, if this doesn't happen, we can't have a season. Now, that initial, you're going to be like annoyed, but then at least I respect them because now I know where I stand and I can follow the, doing nothing and saying nothing for so long and seemingly not even having a plan. Like, we're hearing, they come out in Ontario that they haven't really spoke to them about return to play. And you're like, what? Like, what else have you been doing? What else have you had to do here for the last few months? That should be at the top of your list, because the CFL, let's make no, they can't play without fans, right? The TSN TV deal isn't big enough to play without fans, because if they're losing this much money without players, how much money are they going to lose with players, right? Because the TV contract isn't covering that much, right? Like, the TSN TV deal has helped the league stay afloat. There's no question, but it's not like the NHL or the NBA or Major League Baseball or none of those other leagues. It's not as big. It's not remotely as big, because you only have 35 million people, right? Whereas, when you have the American TV deals, you're talking 400 plus million people to look at, not to mention Canadians, right? So it's completely different. And I think Randy Ambrosie, the mistake I believe that the CFL has made in all of this is they haven't connected to their loyal fan base. In some cases, I feel they've turned them off, and that's a real big challenge, because if you turn enough of them off, because they don't have a ton of new fans coming, right? So if you're not at least connecting with your loyal base, what's going to happen when you come back and play? If you lose 10 to 15% of them, that's a massive blow to this league.
No, I 100% agree with that. And that's why it's so hard right now. And we talked about it, when when Ambrosie came out and said, okay, we're going to delay to August. We have some backup plans. We're not going to say what those are, except maybe ship teams to the West, right? We're going to come out with the schedule later. And we sit on here like, so what have you been doing then? Like, I mean, we're waiting on, vaccines, we're waiting on rollouts, but like, supposedly they're going to be coming out with the schedule in a couple weeks, right? And I want to get your thoughts on that too. But yeah, like you said, I think having that transparency, and I know I've seen numerous, TSN and other reporters, Glenn Suter, all these people saying, Gary Lawless, we want transparency of what's going on. What do you think? Supposedly we have a schedule coming out soon. How do we feel about that?
Well, yeah, Preston said here, later in May, and that's great. I understand the CFL, they had plans for a 14 seasons schedule. I honestly thought 12 would make more sense at that August time, because then you could have had the Grey Cup in the end of November, like you've had all the time. Right now, you're extending those extra weeks and you're getting into December. And hey, I live in Canada, and sure, it can be okay, but it can be gross cold, right? And now fans haven't been out to party in a long time. And if they could, they'll probably be like, I don't care. I'm bundling up because I haven't been able to do anything for almost 2 years now. So maybe they're banking on that. And I also understand, if you have a 14 game season that, you can potentially, get a little bit more revenue. The players agree to it for sure, because I understand the players, they don't want to have to cut a third of their salary off, because there's no chance you're getting the players 100% salary if you're only playing 14 games, right? Like, financially, that's just not going to work, right? Like, the league doesn't have the war chest to do that. So, the schedule, I'm intrigued when it comes out. I always thought August would make sense. Hopefully there's as many people as possible who are vaccinated at that point. If in any league, I've said this about the NHL, I've said this, we saw it for the Rangers, we've seen it for some teams, but I would say, hey, if you want to come to our games, you have to show proof of vaccination. That's because the reality is we're not going to get out of this until most people are vaccinated, right? This is not, in my opinion, that's scientific fact, right? They talk about it. So I think all pro leagues, all music venues, if they said all that, because we know it's going to be that way for flying, and this isn't stomping and taking away our freedoms. Anyone who's ever wanted to travel to Africa for the last decade, guess what? You had to go take certain shots if you wanted to go there. It's that simple. So if you want to fly, you have to take this shot. If you want to go to a sporting event, you have to take this shot. You get the choice. It's your choice. So it's still freedom of choice, but if you want to go, then you have to abide by it. So I would like to see more leagues do that. I don't think the CFL will do it just because others haven't, but they should. And to me, that would be leadership, because leadership is not always doing the tough decision, not the easy one. And, starting in August is fine for the CFL. I don't have a problem with that. I understand it. I didn't think they were ever going to start in June, ever. So, if they come out with a plan for August, but it's going to depend. I know now what's Ontario's extending another 2 weeks for their lockdown into June, which is fine. But when we see that the vaccine numbers keep going up every day, which is awesome, and in a lot of places, hospitalizations are going down. Well, those are the great numbers that you want, right? If you tie it into football, hey, you want more passing yards for and less passing yards against. And that's exactly what's happening now. So hopefully that continues and we get CFL back, because, people just want to go out, but diehard fans want to go. But I think the CFL is going to have a big image problem when they come back, because I think they've really annoyed some of their loyal fan base. Like, I have so many people that were diehard fans of my show for years. They're like, man, I've kind of lost interest in the CFL. Out of sight, out of mind is a dangerous thing in any walk of life.
I completely agree on all of your points there, where you're talking about like vaccines and science is proving. Like, I live in California. We are now the lowest in the U.S. In LA County, where we're in the lowest tier, least restrictive, and it's all because of vaccines. So to that point, vaccines have definitely been helpful in getting that herd immunity idea down. Lisa McLeod, hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right. I think I am. The Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries. That's a long title. Says it would be ambitious to have 5,000 plus fans gathering at CFL come August.
I'm not sure. Like, she says that, but we've seen indoor venues have more than 5,000 fans. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand that rationale. I'm curious why. If you have places that have high vaccine numbers and they're doing it indoors, wearing masks, when every scientific doctor's talked about the fact that it's going to spread more indoors than outdoors. Why would 5,000 be such an egregious, unrealistic number? Heck, Vegas is talking about potentially in the NHL playoffs having full capacity indoors at 18,000. So that's one person's opinion, right? She's not a doctor. I'm not really. I look at the places that are following what the scientists say and the doctors. So I'm always gonna be to them. No offense, I don't really listen to politicians on this, because many of them have been grossly wrong. And whether you lean right or lean left, it doesn't matter. Many have been incorrect in their statements on it. So this is one where I listen to what the doctors say, and if the doctors are the one approving it, then that's good enough for me.
I was actually at a concert, I believe 2 weeks ago, here in LA at SoFi Stadium, and there were more than 5,000 people inside SoFi Stadium. So
yeah.
I think that's I think she's
like, we're talking 3 months from now, right? Like in August or September, and you're saying you can only have 5,000. Some state like Edmonton specifically, right? They got a massive outdoor stadium that fits close to 55,000 people. You're telling me you could only put 5,000 there? Like, give me a break. Like, go to a Walmart or a Costco right now. There's more of those people in a confined space, not 5,000, of course, but in a small area. So I don't. Sometimes there's just a lack of consistency that I don't really understand on this.
One thing I wanted to circle back on, we had Dan Ralph on a couple weeks ago, and he had said, obviously if the league doesn't play this year, right, what is that going to look like? What does that mean? Image problems, whatever. You just said you think if the league plays this year, they already have a huge image crisis. Right? I want to hear what.
I think that they're like, to me, the CFL has struggled, and the CFL has struggled connecting to their fans for many years. I felt like, simple things they could have done. If you don't want to list the contract value of your players, no problem. There was no place where you could go on a website to young fans to see who are their free agents at the end of the season. That's ludicrous in 2018, 2019. It's baffling. Stupid is what it is, because fans want to be able to talk about it. So if they're sitting there in October or September and July and they pull it up, oh, geez, look at our linebacker. He's up. I guess we're going to have to find a replacement for him. And I don't care. The amount of money he makes is irrelevant. I don't need to see that. Right. If you don't want to have it, because how some trolls are going to be, oh, look at that guy only makes 50 grand. I mean, meanwhile, the troll's making 20, but he wants to feel better about himself, I guess. So I look at they're just not connecting to your fans. Right? Like, We have you look at like Puckpedia, which is for Hockey Connection. It has the salary cap. Fans go to it every day to see whose contract's expiring. So they talk about that, right? And to me, and what about your protected list? You list 10 players publicly once a year? What a joke. Why not have your protected list updated all the time? Because you know what's going to happen? Now your fans, they might end up watching more NCAA games just because, hey, we got that quarterback or we got this defensive lineman from Utah. Let's go watch some of his games. You know, maybe the team will sign him. None of that is available publicly. Why? Like, we all know the other teams already know this information. So what are you hiding? You're hiding nothing other than information from your fans. So this has been an issue with the CFL in my eyes long before the pandemic. Now the pandemic has just magnified it, and now they've been out of sight, out of mind. So I think the diehard fans will come back, but those who are like casual fans, they'll be like, maybe I'll go back. But if they went to 4 games a year, they might only go to 1 now, because they've lost their emotional connection. And I think the CFL is going to have to have a much better online presence to connect with their fans. And they didn't do it beforehand. But what else? What have they had to do for the last year and a half? Like, if they haven't thought about an online digital presence to engage with their fans, then they're clueless.
And I think, like, you're pointing out something completely new that we've pointed out numerous times, week after week. We're pointing out, oh, they could do this, they could do that, they could do this, they could do that. And now you're pointing out something new that they could do that we haven't thought about, that, you know, down here in the States, when Major League Baseball has free agency, everybody's wondering where the big free agents are going to go. And it draws interest in the off season. I think having a year-round interest and having these digital presences, whether it's the website you're talking about, whether it's an app on my phone or on my Apple TV box, these kinds of things help grow the game.
Yeah, like TSN has their free agent list, but and the CFL releases their free agent list 2 weeks after the regular season. What? Like, why? So now you're only allowing your fans to have thought about it from middle of December until the middle of February. Like, that's lunacy. Why wouldn't you have it year round and just update it? Here's Montreal's, here's Edmonton, here's Saskatchewan. Oh, look at these guys. Geez, they got 40 contracts to sign. We all know there's lots of them. And like I said, I don't care about the salary. Don't put the salary on. It's none of my business. I don't really care. That doesn't impact it. It's like, geez, this guy's a free agent. You know what? Sure, it would be nice. And I'm sure if you wanted to, you know, agents could get it out there. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But it's something the league, there hasn't been that. They haven't worked in conjunction with some website to do it, you know, and 3 Down Nation has done a good job of trying to, you know, add a presence to the CFL online. TSN, obviously, you know, Farhan and a lot of those guys, Dave Naylor, they do a great job, but it's not enough. You should have independent sites doing it, and you can't get that information anywhere. And it's closed-minded by the league. The NHL works with some of these sites. You know, other leagues do as well. They release that information, and the protected list. Like, guys, how is that not out there? It's just, and the great part about the protection list is it changes literally every week. Every week. So you're getting new information for your diehard fans to go they just dropped this quarterback? I didn't like him anyway. Oh, now they got this quarterback, right? It's going to get your fans more engaged 24/7, 365 days a year. And the CFL they don't seem to grasp that. They think, you know what? We'll have our fans engaged 2 weeks or 3 before free agency, then during the season, and that's good enough for us. Well, no other business runs that way successfully in sports nowadays.
No, I completely agree. And I mean, obviously they would say, well, it's a money issue, right? We have to hire somebody, whatever. I mean, we're going through the same thing. We're covering the spring league. You know, it's like a developmental thing down in the States right now. And they have like no presence at all. And you know, we've had the CEO on, but then we're trying to get players on. You know, they don't have time. I go, what it would cost you one kid with a camera for 2 weeks to go down there and film and pay him $15 an hour? Like, why you don't do that and send some video back of these players doing things? But it's like a weird lack of motivation, but then we don't have the money, but then we don't have the money because we don't have it's this chicken and an egg thing. And it's like, well, you have to, at some point, you know, hire an intern for the CFL, just like you said, you know, to do some of these web things. Or, you know, the fact that you have this Canadian Football League and that like 3 Down is really the only place to go for any information on anything is also very weird, right? That we don't have like competing outlets and all these things, you know, doing those same things. We're going through very similar things with both of these leagues right now and frustrations.
Well, the thing is, the CFL has been around for 100 years. Like, no offense to the Spring League, but they're kind of starting up, fledgling league. So I could see maybe having some restrictions. The CFL could have brought this in very slowly, a little bit at a time, and it would have been super simple. And in the offseason meeting, say, okay, we're going to have one staff member. It's going to cost us $65,000. Every team is going to put in $8,000. Every team's going to put in $6,000, whatever the number is. I don't care, right? And oh, by the way, now that we have this site up, we're going to have sponsors on there all the time, and we're probably going to be able to recoup it. And even if we only break even, we're engaging our fans significantly. And that's actually going to help our bottom line elsewhere, because they might buy more jerseys. They might come to a few more games. Now they're going to buy more beer and more hot dogs, right? Like it's an easy trickle down effect that if you have a simple plan with that, it's not hard, because you know what, when you change think about it, once, like the original cost would be the setup of the site. Well, you get any web guy to set up the site. It's not that ridiculously expensive. And then you have somebody who monitors it. So the teams, because they have to send in their list to the league every day when they're changing, when they're dropping and adding someone. That's all you're doing. It's only 9 teams. You're just adding and dropping, right? Like one click. All right, here you go. And you know what? Even if the guy only updates it every second day, like even if it's only, say, you know what, we're only going to update it on Wednesdays, and to start, we're going to do it every second day. Fine. That would still be a significant improvement over what they're doing now. And it wouldn't be that, like, the cost to me is I think that's a lame excuse by the CFL. It's just, they don't have the plan. They're a league that still believes that, they have to protect everything. And that's not how you're protecting nothing. It's a protected league. All the other teams know who you have protected. So you're not hiding it. There's no competitive advantage here.
Very good points. Very good points. Another question I had about players. We're seeing some players go into maybe an early retirement. Is that also a concern to get a full season? Like all these players are just, they're like 29, 30. They're going, I don't know if this is going to last too much longer. I'm just going to retire.
100%. That's a concern. I get it. Like I've talked to a lot of the players, in Edmonton, Ryan King and Calvin McCarthy, and now McCarty, he's older. He might've retired anyway, but Ryan King, now he had an opportunity to start a career post football, which a lot of guys are thinking about anyway. But, you start losing a few veterans. Now you can bring in young guys, but too much youth at any league isn't good for the product. That's just a fact. Right. So I think that is a concern for some players, no question. And then the other concern is going to be for some guys who have waited. And, think about being a player now where, you've got to be training the entire time with no reward of ever playing a game. Right. Because let's be honest, you work hard all off season, and the reward is you get to practice and play then from May until November. Right. That's your reward. They haven't had a reward. So mentally, I could only imagine how challenging that would be for the players to stay motivated. For young players are coming out of college, sure. But, it's going to be fascinating to see. Obviously, when the league returns, it'll be the largest turnover from the previous year we've ever had, because there was a full lockout in between. But, that's going to be a challenge. Coaching staffs have already been shrunk a little bit. So now you might have fewer coaches to try to, teach the rules to more guys at one time. So it'll probably lead to maybe more mistakes. And, it might lead to a little bit more exciting football, because more mistakes is more exciting usually, especially if you like offense. So maybe there is a silver lining in that. But I think after that long of a layoff, like I won't be stunned if there's probably a lot of tissue injuries early on.
I'm laughing here as I look at the clock, and I want to make sure we touch on this before we go. Would you believe that an XFL podcast talked to you for 30 minutes about CFL stuff, and the XFL hasn't been brought up yet? So I do want to know what your thoughts are on all of that and the potential merger partnership talks we have going on.
Yeah, well, guys, we got a few more minutes. I'm in no rush. Don't worry. But you know what? Hey, first of all, Dwayne Rock Johnson behind the XFL, like the guy respects the game of football. I think he truly respects the CFL. I've had him on my show many years ago talking about it. And, he talked very highly of Wally Bono and in his brief time in the CFL. And, I know there's some diehard people that are like, you know what? Hey, we expanded into the United States once and it didn't work. I'm like, well, you're right. It didn't work, but it didn't harm the league. Right. Baltimore, there's lots of diehard Baltimore fans who still follow the league because of that. Right now, they went into some markets. Like, you're not playing football outside in Vegas in the summertime. Like, dude, like you talk to the players about it. Like that was ridiculous. They're dying, literally, like not literally dying, but physically it was tough to play football there. So I think if you have a plan, and a proper plan. Like, I'm not one to just say, no chance, it's not going to work. I'd like to hear it, but, put out there what your plan is going to be. How are you going to amalgamate? What rules are you going to play? Is it going to be where you just cross over? If you like, I don't want it to be two separate leagues that play each other once or twice, or maybe that's totally different thinking outside the box. And maybe that's what they could do. And, it would, now, obviously you'd have to have buy-in from the players that suddenly they're going to play a different set of rules for 1 or 2 weeks a year. Right. So that's the thing. You can't have two separate leagues that play each other once or twice, because now you're going to play by completely different rules. That looks too gimmicky for me. Pick a set of rules. And I know some people are, a little opposed to 4-down football, because 3-down football has been the lifeblood of Canadian Football League. So I can understand that. I have empathy for those who are like, hey, I don't want to change. Lots of people don't like change. At the same time, in British Columbia, they've been playing 4-down football for a long time. But that also doesn't mean, if The Rock really says, hey, you know what, geez, the CFL has been around a long time. They've got much more success track record than the XFL's ever had. Maybe we should look at that and say, can we go with 3-down football? But is there any other things we can incorporate? Like maybe you eliminate the rouge, because we're like, we just don't want that, right? So if there's a give and take here, I think there's an opportunity that could work together. I am definitely not opposed to it at all. I'm not one who thinks that, because the XFL, I don't really care about the XFL and Vince McMahon. This isn't who it is now, right? This is, Dwayne Rock Johnson and their group, and what they're going to do is probably going to be different, right? They're not going to be having sprints to see who kicks off first, right? They're not going to like, there's not going to be things like that. So I'm kind of intrigued by it. And I think for the Canadian Football League, they haven't had a lot of growth in the Canadian market. Teams have been shrinking their fan base. So, if you end up only having 6 teams in Canada, maybe in the future, and you've got 6 in the US, I'm okay with that. Every other league crosses the border and travels. It's not a big deal. It's about when can you play it? How can you make it work so it's going to work, right? And I think there'd be some Canadians that are like, I know the CFL plays at opposite time for the most part of the CFL. September, October, November, they're head to head, and that's okay. You're just not going to play on Sundays. Who cares?
Yeah, I think, and we had, I was watching Rod Peterson's show yesterday. He had Arash on, who we have a history with, and the XFL and everything else. And when you imagine that the XFL came up yesterday, but it seems like the concern is, and I think his quote was, we're with this merger talks, whatever, we are losing the Canadian in the CFL, right? That to him equating, 110 yards, wider fields, all these things, that is, it is tied to your national identity, pride, everything else. Where, for better or worse, the XFL, we're just like, we don't know anything, right? Like we don't have 100 years of this like loyalty to everything. So how do you grapple with that, with the quote unquote losing the Canadianness of the CFL if that happens?
Well, people, I've talked to a lot of football guys, especially the players. They all grew up playing American football. They came up to Canada and they said, man, like I think one of the biggest misnomers is everybody just assumes like certain body types have more success in the CFL. That's just a fact, right? And, there's more space. You got to be quicker. The 20-second time clock, I like it. There's more of the game. Like, hey, as great as, the NFL is, the final 2 minutes in the NFL are the worst 2 minutes in pro sports. It's a joke. Like you just take a kneel down to run out the game. It's embarrassing. Yeah. Like it completely eliminates the highest potential stress time of a game to nothing. I hate it. But I like the NFL and I like the CFL. I've liked the XFL. I've watched it. I have no problem with it when they had it. So right now there is no XFL of actual football. So you would think that they're open to understanding and saying, hey, if we're going to play on a 110-yard field, so what? We're going to play on a 110-yard field. Like it's not. I don't think that. Is if that's the deciding factor, if I'm the XFL and say, hey, we can merger with these guys, okay, we're going to stick with their rules. They won't stick with all of them because like anything, you can tweak some. But if the field distance and width is, because that's what makes it exciting. Because if you're going to shrink the field, there's no reason to have the 12 guys on the field. It would be even harder, right? So the reason you have the extra man is because you have the extra distance. So I would definitely stick with 12 just because it's different. You don't want to be the NFL. You're never going to compete with the NFL ever. So don't try to be the NFL. You can play good football that has different rules. And I think people who respect football will be like, okay, this is different. but I can still respect it. It's still football at the basis. It just has a few different rules, right? Like you're still snapping the ball, you're still throwing it, you're still sacking guys, you're still having interceptions. Like it's just a few little nuances. So I wouldn't get too caught up in like NCAA football has different rules than the NFL. No one says, oh, well, geez, one's completely garbage because their rules are different. So you're going to have a few different rules. I'm okay with that.
Jason Gregor, host of the Jason Gregor Show. We want to thank you for coming on. Before we let you go, I want to get your prediction on who's going to lift Lord Stanley's Cup at the end of the year. I know it's not CFL related, but.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. This year's so unique because the teams have only stayed in their division, which I've really liked for 1 year. It's been a lot of fun. Big Vegas guy. Hey, I like Vegas. I'm not sure they got a top center, though, to win the Cup. That's my only concern with Vegas. I'm probably going to go a little bit off the board, and I think it's Carolina, Colorado in the final.
Okay. I like the Carolina pick. I think
I like Carolina's a deep team. They got a lot, maybe goaltending's a concern for them. If Colorado, like if Nate McKinnon's, like I know he's not playing again. If he's banged up, man, that's a huge blow for Colorado. So that, like if Eric Johnson was healthy, I'd say Colorado, I'd take him easy. But big defenseman, man, come playoff time, it's just like in the trenches, boys. Most of the games are won in the trenches in football. If you don't have good O-line and good D-line, it's hard to win. And if having good defense, it's really hard not. And Colorado has good mobile defense, but man, Miss Eric Johnson would just make that. They'd be my Cup favorite for sure. But them and Vegas look like on a collision course. I'll say this: how about tonight to decide who's going to win the President's Trophy? Because that's a huge game. Because the loser between Colorado and Vegas has to play Minnesota. And that's a big difference, man. Like, I'd rather play St. Louis than Minnesota all day in the first round. Like, suddenly you have a much more challenging first round. For whatever reason, Minnesota's matched up really well against Vegas. Like, this year we've seen matchups are a much bigger thing in hockey when they play so regularly. And is it any chance that Toronto might sneak in there and surprise people? I'm not sold Toronto's going to be. I think Toronto and Edmonton. That's going to be. Because I think Toronto beats Montreal and I think Edmonton beats Winnipeg. And, you've got Matthews and McDavid and Marner and Draisaitl. Like Connor McDavid's on a different planet right now in what he's doing. And hey, I know that, Matthews has scored his goals, but Ovi scored more goals in 52 games in 2008. Like what Matthews is doing is good, but it's not something we haven't seen in a long time. What McDavid's doing is off the charts. And so, Toronto has more depth, no question, but they got some goaltending concerns. Like I'm intrigued by that one. And I'm really intrigued, whoever it is, Edmonton or Toronto, whoever wins the North, I think they're going to surprise some people because I've heard a lot of people, mainly out of the US, claiming that the North is a weak division this year. There's really no statistical data that backs that up. In fact, did you know that going into the season, the North Division teams had 32% of the top scores from the last 2 years? 32%. So in theory, they should have scored more goals, right? Because they have more talent in that division against all the other teams. Well, that didn't happen this year. They actually ended up with second most goals per game. Like, my nephew plays in San Jose. The Sharks aren't good. LA isn't good. Anaheim isn't good. Arizona isn't good. Like, Vegas and Colorado and many are good, but are they that much better because they've got 4 crappy teams? So there's a debate everywhere. I'm fascinated whoever wins their 4 divisions, how those other divisions match up because they haven't seen each other all year long. And I kind of like that. It's got a little bit of a football feel to it because a lot of times, right, there's Super Bowl matchups where those teams haven't met all year long. And I kind of like that. Well, when Paul and I start our where's my flag? When we start our Kraken podcast, we'll have to have you back on, and we'll do a whole. Hey, buddy, you know what? I love it. The Seattle and Vegas, like those are 2 easy road trips for Canadian fans out west to want to get down to. And I'll say this, man, Vegas is the greatest hockey experience right now. If there's any of your listeners who haven't been to a Vegas Golden Knights game for hockey, you got to go. Like I don't even care if you know anything about hockey. You'll go there and you'll be like, damn, like they know how to do it right. For a game entertainment, which is another thing. It's a total different topic we could get onto, boys. But I think sports is something they have to figure out. The game on the ice is one part of the entertainment package. You've got to do a lot more. And if you do those other things, then your fans, like, this is a party, man. Like the game's almost like that's a bonus. And it also helps that your team's being successful right from the get-go. But go to Vegas, I'll say that. And Nashville, like there's a few cities that you might not love their team, but if you're looking for a good entertainment value night out where you're like, damn, that was fun, I'd go there. Vegas is unreal.
Thank you. Jason Gregor, host of the Jason Gregor Show. Want to thank you for your time, dropping in, talking CFL stuff, and a little bit of hockey at the end. We appreciate it.
Hey, guys, can I ask you one question? You're the diehards. What do you guys think of an XFL-CFL merger?
I've said this from the get-go. I would appreciate a de facto expansion of the CFL. I think that would be the most logical thing to do, and try to find a way to fit as many Canadian rules in the XFL game, because like you've said, the CFL has the track record. They have the Grey Cup. It's been it's a 108-year league in some consideration, and then like 60 years in another consideration. But the point is that I think that we should bend to what the Canadian fans want to make this a successful partnership.
Yeah, I've heard from the beginning from the people I talked to, one league, one rule book, and that nothing that I've talked about or heard has swayed me from that. So I hope that I've told Canadians, I said, I'll be at the front lines with you if they change too much stuff, because I do think it needs to be, and because we're critical of everything. I mean, I'm not a mark for anything in particular, and if they take too much of it away. But yeah, I've always heard and felt one league, one rule book. And
you have to protect the ratio. I think that's the number one most important thing I think needs to be protected, is the ratio.
Yeah, see, that's funny. I would be in favor if they dropped it to 6.
Wow.
Because to me, the best players are still going to make it. The best players are going to make it. Look at Canadians in the NBA. Look at Canadians. Look at Alphonso Davies in soccer now in Europe. You want the best athletes, and you still have 6 per team, especially if you're actually expanding guys. And you're expanding, that's going to be way more Canadians. So in fact, if you expand the league, you might have to drop it to 5, because currently, if we say there's 7 on each team, right, that's 63, right? Well, if all of a sudden your league's going to be up to 12 teams, I don't think you want 7 per team now, because now you're asking for way more. And I'm just not sure there's that many quality ones. So the easy one is to combine the expansion and lower the number to 6. You're still going to have basically the same amount, right? And spread out, and it's fine. And so I think it helps it overall. And because we're seeing more Canadians at different positions, thankfully, than we've ever had before. So it's not going to be a challenge. And some teams, there were years, some teams had 9 starters because they were that good, right? But having 6, I'd be fine with. I don't think you need to keep it at 7 if you expand to more teams.
Makes sense. Any other questions for us, Jason?
Boys, could have a lot, but I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it. I'd love to see an expansion. I'm a huge fan of the CFL. I grew up as a kid. I actually worked selling ice cream at Edmonton games when I was in my teenage years. I would only sell enough to break even, and then I'd watch the second half because I felt like I got in the game for free. So it was perfect. But I've loved the Grey Cup. I'll say this, boys. Hopefully the league gets back up, and you guys will have to come to a Grey Cup.
We are going this year. There's no question.
Like, I don't know, it trumps the Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl, unless you're in the elite category, you don't get to do a lot of the fun stuff. The Grey Cup is a great party week, and it doesn't matter what team you cheer for. No one cares. Everybody's just super friendly. It's loads of fun.
No,
Canadians are always friendly to me. So except on Twitter a little bit, they get a little bit of belligerent, but all in all, we love you guys. Thank you for your time, Jason Gregor, for host of the Jason Gregor Show. Hopefully we'll bring you back on eventually when the season gets moving.
Yeah, that'll be nice. Well, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Reed. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. This has been a couple weeks in the making. I know you're a busy guy, so I think it was well worth the wait. I appreciate that we got this on the schedule, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, everybody, we got our first sponsor. It's awesome. Support for the Markcast brought to you by Manscaped. They are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. They're the champions of the world in that aspect. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They just launched their 4th-generation trimmer. Here it is right here. It's the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, and I've been trusting it for quite a while. 2 years now going on, being a member of Manscaped. This exclusive offer is for our listeners, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code MARKCAST at manscaped.com. I think there's a minimum of stuff you have to buy before you get that 20% off, but free shipping, 20% off with your order at markcast.com. And let me tell you something.
Manscaped.com. Code MARKCAST at manscaped.com.
Code MARKCAST at manscaped.com. Sorry about that. I didn't get it Lawnmower 3.0. I've been using a 2.0 for quite some time. This is the new 4.0. It's next level.
That's totally crazy.
Wireless charging. I mean, look, there's a light. There's a light there if you're in a dark situation.
Maybe in your shower trying to get a little trim.
It's waterproof. And, if you need a quick little trim before, anything happens, because let's face it, folks, like, let's face facts. The ladies, they don't want to go down there, and see a bunch of stuff going on.
This is good.
We're going there. But that's the case. And I want to point this out too. Ladies, this is a great trimmer for you. We don't have to, we're not trying to be like gender specific on this thing. Ladies, this is a great trimmer for you too. It's very soft. It doesn't nick your skin. It's got the ceramic blade that is very, it's an all around great product. And I can't say enough good things about it. They give you a guard. If you don't want to go completely clean, they'll give you a little trim guard, and you could pop that trim guard on there. And I'm telling you, you can't go wrong with the 4.0. I've used it already. It's fantastic. I did have a couple nick problems with my 2.0. It nicked me a little bit. This thing is flawless. So if you have a Manscaped trimmer and you want to upgrade, go with the 4.0. If you don't have a Manscaped trimmer, please do so. Grab one of these. These are great things for your family jewels, or if you want to trim anything related to unwanted hair. So 20% off, free shipping. The code Markcast at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
Yeah, real talk. We got like 98% male demographic viewing the show. You want to support the show. We're not making a lot. This is a great way. If you need it anyway, we got a sponsor. If you've liked the show and you subscribed, all the other things, this is great. But yes, please help. I've heard a lot of people say they get their CFL news from us now. So if you appreciate that, and if you need something, this is a great way. It's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for Manscaped. It's a win for us. It's a win for you. So it's great. I normalize doing all those things because I used to think that was weird, and that it's very normal. So it's normalize having an open mind to XFL football, and normalize thinking about other things.
Grooming. Grooming is a good thing, We're not in 1974 anymore. Let's groom.
That's what I got.
Again, 20% off with the code Markcast at manscaped.com. And we're back.
Putting in that work, putting in that advertising. There you go. Manscaped, we're doing it. Support the show. I'm serious. A lot of work goes into this. Support it.
Please, please, please. Moving on now, as talks with the XFL continue, CFL's partners in Mexico hope for a seat at the table. Interesting.
Yeah. So remember a couple of weeks ago, we had that translated Reddit article where it was Alejandro Jaime. Sorry, I am very American. Dan Barnes wrote this whole article up, and I thought this was funny. So we talked about it a couple weeks ago. We kind of said it was a nothing burger. All this stuff came out now. Dan Barnes, friend of the show, wrote this great article. So the quote, this is really funny. So the quote from the commissioner, so everyone freaking out, oh, this XFL is going to expand to Mexico, whatever. If you read the article, the quote, Randy says he's always thinking about Mexico. We told him we are so close that we should be more probable that the XFL and CFL and the LFA should be making something. We have two strengths. We have the same football as the XFL, the same rules, and we are neighbors now. We want to be in the conversation. The CFL has told us they are going to put us at the table, but I think it's the beginning. I think we are in the formula. So then you have a quote from Ambrosi. It's like they're talking. What I promised my dear friend Oscar Perez, and he's one of the guys with the LFA, is I would say this to frankly all of our international alliance partners, is that we have something of substance to discuss. We will, of course, share it with them. That's what Ambrosi said. And then Dan Barnes commented, I love Dan Barnes. This is what he writes. That doesn't sound like a seat at the planning table. That sounds more like a phone call after the fact. But the LFA leaders will remain patient and remain hopeful. So I still think it's kind of a nothing burger right now. I saw that go around a lot this week, like XFL expanding down to Mexico. I'm not saying that that's going to be, but when Ambrosi is even saying I said I would give him a call.
Yeah, it was like, simmer down. You're making way more out of this than you need to make. And I mean, I don't, maybe I'm being a bit, I guess, dismissive. I don't really see other than delivering some markets in Mexico, I don't really see a need to bring the LFA into this. If that's wrong, I'm sorry, but I think there's plenty to go. NFL goes down there and plays games. I think that's kind of the thing right now is like NFL and CFL. On the list of things that register, LFA is way down there here in America and Canada. So
one step at a time. Let's get through. I think that is a future goal for sure. And I know that other people have looked at the tweets that Danny Garcia did when the whole like merger thing, and she had all the flags, and then she had the world, and people said, well, that means that this is where we're going. But that's a quote from Ambrosi. Like that's a commissioner. I know that you could take it or leave it, whatever, but he's saying, yeah, we told him we'll give him a call and keep him up on this. I just had a rant. Can I have a rant?
You certainly can.
Do you remember on the show last week when we talked about how the BC, the doctors there said that maybe hundreds of people in outdoor stadium or outdoor activities, and then we were talking about the BC Lions president saying how he was going to open the roof and allow people in, and that they were going forward with their plans no matter what the health officials say.
Right.
So we do this whole show we do a whole thing on it. What happens this week? Dunk with 3 down comes out. Hey, did you know all this? Goes everywhere. We talked about that for 15 minutes on the show last week. And I gave my sources. I showed my homework. I said, here were the quotes that we used. It's frustrating. People on Twitter know 3 down blocked my personal account this week. I'm very combative with a lot of people. I really have not been combative with any of the like 3 down proper, like JC, we've gone back and forth with one of the writers, but, we are a resource. We had 45 minutes with Jason Gregor coming on, talking about things like, we are the media, we are a resource, and I don't appreciate that. Do you have any thoughts about that? Or, we don't need to get too into details so you don't, but.
I guess I don't understand. I mean, they blocked your personal, they didn't block my personal, I don't understand. Like we view them as a resource. I mean, yeah, they do get a little clickbaity and a little bit homerish, but they still have some resources that we like to cite and we like to, give credit.
Always give credit
for them reporting that. And I guess I think that's cutting off your nose to spite your face, because we're not trying to troll you, heel on you completely. We're just trying to like get some perspective in terms of like, guys, the CFL is not the only thing that's going to drive people to watch your product. Like you're resting your laurels based on the 108-year league thing that you keep bringing up. And I just think that when you block other opinions on how to grow the CFL game, I think it's myopic. I think it's very, head in the sand, plugging your ears, clutching your pearls. All the analogies apply here, and I don't understand why they. I don't know.
And it's a news site. You're a news site. That would be like NBC blocking. And not that but like we are as much the CFL media at this point as anyone. I feel, at least for commentary. Maybe not for like investigative reporting. And I just to throw this out, and so if you guys think that I'm being whatever. Think of all the people that we've had on the show: Rob Peterson, Dave Campbell, Derek Taylor, Jason Gregor. I'm sure that's not going to change anything with all this. Dan Barnes, Dan Ralph, Rob Vanstone. Think of all the wonderful people we've had on the last 3 months. The only interview that has ever gotten published by 3 Down Nation that we've done is when Arash talked crap about the XFL. That is the only time in the last 3 months that they've ever acknowledged our existence, with all of the like trying to brainstorm the game. Jim Mullen, President of Football Canada, comes on, nothing. And I'm like, guys, we are a resource too, talking with these people, trying to figure out what's going on. What do they think about the season? What did they think about this? What did they think about this? I don't care. Don't write up what we say, but write up what our guests say that come on our show. I don't care that like I'm not a brainiac, but if President of Football Canada comes on, I would assume that you would do a write up about that. I don't think the CFL news is blowing off the door that 3 Down doesn't need to like write up when, Dan Barnes comes on and shares his thoughts about the CFL not being transparent or whatever.
Right. And I want to thank Jim Mullen. He sent me a care package. So when I go,
Jim, what the fuck?
When we go to the Grey Cup, I've got like I don't. They call it a toque up there. We call it a beanie down here.
He gave you a beanie?
Yeah, I got a Canada. I'm sorry, Reed.
I tweeted. I go, Jim. I was like me being sad, and then he tweeted the George Bush like mission accomplished in the Iraq War. So I thought maybe that was him acknowledging that he didn't deliver fully. To get a little political.
Well, I mean, do you want the hat? I can send you the hat.
Jim, I'm just saying. Anyway, enough with that. I just want to point that out. Like, we are trying to be, and a lot of people said that they thought that was more to do with the CFL and 3 down than us. So I appreciate all of that. The last thing about CFL stuff, they were kicking off the debate. We talked last week. The single sports betting was going to the Senate. This is so funny. They're like, the Senate, remember, single game betting is going to save the CFL, right? Ambrosi, we're going to add, it's going to expose more people. We're going to be able to brand all this stuff, whatever. Senate of Canada has begun debating legislation that could legalize the game. There's a good chance of getting it passed before the current session of Parliament ends if progress is made. Update, Senate adjourned May 6th until May 25th. So like, again, this is what they're trying to say. They're trying to say like single game sports betting is going to save the CFL. And then it's like, yeah, we're adjourned now through the end of May.
It's not. I mean, I don't see how it does.
Well, and it's not going to come there's no way it comes into effect this season now. If they've adjourned through the end of May, do you think if they come back in June and that like with all this other crap that they're going to get this going by the time the CFL kicks off in August? Like, no way.
Nope.
But that was going to be a big, Ambrosi said, this was going to be a big, we're going to expose all these more people and we're going to do whatever. So anyway, do you want to do a break now before we get NFL and stuff, or how do you want to do? Just want to roll through?
Let's just roll through.
Okay,
I think we're okay. We can roll through here.
You put this in. I want to hear your thoughts.
I did put this in. I thought when I put this in, they only had released week 1. Notable games in week 1 include, of course, we're going to keep our eyes on the LA Chargers, still trying to get used to that. LA Chargers heading to the Washington football team. Are they going to get a name? Is that going to happen? Or are they just going to say Washington football team for the rest of time?
Yeah, this is the NFL schedule. I love the Washington football team. I love the Edmonton football team. I love a team has no name. I think that's wonderful. I like the WFT. I like the generic Washington. I will tell you, I have seen, and I do follow Taylor Heineke on Instagram. I saw him yesterday deadlift about 1 billion pounds on like crazy. I mean, this dude is out of control. I don't see the same from Fitzmagic.
Fitzmagic is very sporadic.
Yeah.
If he weren't so sporadic and were very consistent, he would have stayed with one team as opposed for playing for 12 different teams. So if he falters, is it a situation where Heineke goes in there and you saw what Heineke did? Washington gave Tampa their toughest game of the NFL playoffs. Taylor Heineke stepped up. And I mean, if Fitzmagic falters at all, you got to watch to see if Taylor Heineke is going to come in.
I think he's playing this year. I think Washington would have made a swing in the draft. I mean, I think that they are very content with him as their backup right now. And then Fitz is on a 1-year deal, but Washington made no moves at all to get a quarterback. Oh. And I think that speaks very highly to what they think about Heineke, who's on a 2-year. It's not a $10 million deal, but it's like 2 point something each year. But it's good. And then we have the Jets and the Panthers, which is going to be fun.
Week 1. Sam Darnold hosting his former team. And I know how angry New York Jets fans are about Sam Darnold. So it's going to be interesting to see if Sam Darnold validates the Jets fans' concerns or shuts them up. That's the thing I'm going to be looking forward to.
I don't think Darnold has it, but that's just me. I don't know. I mean, the Jets were horrendous, but I don't know.
Speaking of Carolina.
Yeah, this is good. I found this. Yeah.
Spicy. Teddy Bridgewater dissing the Panthers organization. It's on the All Things Covered podcast. Bridgewater said, one thing we didn't do much of when I was there, we didn't practice 2 minutes, really. We didn't practice red zone. You walk through the red zone stuff, and then Saturday you come out and practice red zone, but you only get 15 live reps. Guys' reps would be limited.
And I'll tell you, what did they say all season the Panthers struggled with? Red zone. That's all I heard watching these games. PJ came in and played. PJ was responsible for 20% of the wins that the Carolina Panthers had last season. But they stunk in the red zone. And then when you have Teddy saying, like, we never practiced that, I go, that's remarkable.
Yeah, you would think, like, if you started to see some struggles, normally coaching, you focus on the struggles you're having. Like if your basketball team is playing a really crappy zone, you practice more zone defense. I mean, that's just common sense. Rule responded, didn't criticize Bridgewater's play, called him an ultimate competitor and a great dude. But he sounded like a disappointed dad because he said, when you have 140 guys in the locker room, guys will disagree on some things. You can't ask everyone to agree with everything, but he feels really good about what they do.
I mean, I that's spicy. That's the article later on was like, yeah, he basically like burned all bridges there. I'm like, man, Teddy is someone that bounces around a lot. I mean, he's got to be frustrated, but man, that is rough to be doing that. This came out right after we recorded. It's not a lot to talk about, but The Rock, they had that Under Armour ad. This was like right after, like we literally stopped recording and I went to Twitter. I will say though, Mark had the quote on here where it had like 100,000 views in like an hour or something. Where is this going to show? I don't want this to, oh yeah, there we go. It's going to play the, this has, where do I see the, here we go. This has 145,000 views. This ad that shows that it's like The Rock working out and it has the XFL belt on it. That is 3 times as many people as watch the CFL draft. And that's on the right. And then on his Instagram, it's got like 3 million or whatever. But again, you can't buy.
Don't care. Twice failed league. Don't care.
You can't.
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
You can't buy that kind of publicity. Anyway, that could have been like, a lead story in a different life, but we're kind of on CFL stuff now. Do you want to talk about the Chiefs?
Chiefs cutting former XFL St. Louis quarterback Jordan Tamu. Also, they made SMU quarterback Shane Buechele. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. They made him a priority free agent, guaranteeing him $175,000. And that, then of course, the Chiefs did cut Jordan Tamu.
So they kind of replaced him, yeah.
Yeah, Chad Henne, Shane Buechele, Anthony Gordon, all backing up Patrick Mahomes.
It's tough, I mean, Tamu bounced around. He went to the Lions. He came back. I would really like to see, it's tough. It's tough. Just a couple other, I will blow through some of this because we have a lot. Dallas Renegades, running back Austin Walter got cut by the 49ers. That came out today. And then the Seattle Seahawks signed Houston Roughnecks, Savion Smith. Cornerback, less than 24 hours on the open market after being cut by the Cowboys. They signed him with the Seahawks, so that would be good. I like the Seahawks.
And the Seahawks are really good at finding defensive backs. Those diamonds in the rough. Richard Sherman, 5th round. It's going to be interesting to see if he pans out there.
If you don't have anything to say on this one, that's fine. I just added it.
Look, yeah, we're at Golden Knights jersey.
The Golden Knights purchased an indoor football expansion team. What do you think?
The Arena Football League, which was successful for 32 years despite Arash's insistence, it no longer exists. But the Indoor Football League, they exist now. And I see this article here. They're like including some of your favorite AFL teams are even in the Indoor Football League, including the Arizona Rattlesnakes. Incorrect. It was the Arizona Rattlers. Do your research, as those people that watch YouTube videos about vaccines will say to you. Do your research. Google's your friend. It really is your friend. The new expansion team will be the IFL's 18th team and will be based out of Las Vegas. It's targeted for the 2022 season. So the Golden Knights making moves in that area. Will it work now in Vegas now that they've got the Raiders? They might have the Athletics from Oakland.
I heard that.
Yeah. Are we getting a little oversaturated with sports in the Vegas market? No, who would have thought?
Never. I love it. Vegas is like America's city. I mean, that's like.
Yeah, Nydia says it's my favorite city. I'm like,
I love Vegas.
I like Vegas too. I enjoy it a lot now that I can afford to go to shows and stuff. And when I was in college, just an hour down the road, I couldn't really do that. But now I can afford that stuff. So she makes fun of me all the time. Never mentioning that she saw J-Lo in Vegas too. So.
I gotta share the story when you took Nydia to go see Boyz II Men, and they posted. Paul sent the photo, and he was like, They were second row by Boys to Men. I was like, what that cost you? Like $60 combined? He's like, shut up. You were so mad because Paul was so proud that he got second row seats. But I mean, Boys to Men.
It's Boys to Men. I mean, you didn't grow up on Boys to Men like I grew up on Boys to Men, so it doesn't matter to you. Also, to that point, I we're going off topic completely here, but Boys to Men turned down the song that Lone Star made, Amazed, and won all the Grammys. They were initially offered Amazed. They turned it down. That was an incredible story. So
this is, bear with me. So we have an update with the Oliver Luck, who is not going to be the Pac-12 commissioner. Max is still sending me things about this. So there's this weird stuff going on where basically, like, they're going to start doing testimonies. So, like, Luck's going to do a testimony, which I'm thrilled about. Vince is going to do one, and then a couple other alpha people. But Luck is trying to, like, pull another testimony in. Like, he wants to depose someone else. And I'm trying to get in here because Vince has this great quote where, so McMahon, who's the CEO of World, WWE and Alpha, he's calling Luck, and get this, Vince is saying this about someone else. Luck's escalating pattern of abusive and harassing discovery tactics and gamesmanship. This is like pot call. That's why I put this in here. Like, it kind of gets into semantics with, like, okay, they're trying to call one and they're trying to call, but the fact that Vince is like, well, this rattlesnake trying to do all this. What do you think about that?
Don't be a bully, Vince. Be a star.
Right? I mean, WWE runs that's very true. I like that. Anyway, so this is going on right now. I think they're calling them like this week. It's continuing, but it's really getting, it's just funny to me with Vince trying to paint anybody else as the bully in that situation. Is just absurd to me.
Didn't you just send one of your former wrestlers all our belongings in a trash bag, Vince?
It's not.
That same person, didn't you direct talent on her way out the door the first time to make fun of her weight, Vince? I mean, come on, Vince. No, it's okay for you, but not anyone else.
Last XFL, we'll do a break. We'll bust through. We're going along here. We'll bust through TSL stuff. A thing came out with, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. Some news came out about someone potentially being hired from the XFL on LinkedIn. This Michael Lewis, he like lied. Like, he put this on his LinkedIn and was like, I'm a regional talent recruiting. And I guess he like went on the podcast and was talking about how he was recruiting talent for like Oklahoma. And it was total lie. Like, this guy literally like put it on he's still on his LinkedIn right now. But anyway, that kind of went viral this week with like the XFL hiring and all that stuff. Both Mike and Jay reached out to the XFL. They are not, none of this is true. This guy's not connected, and they're also not hiring anybody right now. So that is either good or bad how you look at it, but that is bad. What is going on.
Bad. You're done. You want to be in football? You are done. You are as done as Christian Dawkins is with the game of basketball. And if you don't know what I'm talking about there, then I won't.
You mean this guy's done, not the XFL's done? You mean this guy's
done? No, the guy is done in all of football now. Guaranteed.
Well, that's bad. No, he was on the podcast. He went on the podcast and was talking about how he was. Anyway, so I don't want to, who we know everything, but I just want to make sure, in case you didn't see, that was not actually accurate. And I blame that gentleman 100% for lying on his stuff.
Yep. All right, we're going to take a final break here. Pay the rest of our bills. Coming back, we're going to have some Spring League notes and some random notes right after this. Welcome back to the show. Spring League notes. You put this guy's name in here a lot. Liram Hajiralu.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Hyrula. I'm sorry, Liram. I'm really sorry.
Liram. Let's get Liram on the podcast. Tell us how you say your name.
Please. The 31-year-old went perfect 5 for 5 on field goals Saturday afternoon, tying a league single game record. His toughest kick came from 59 yards out. Of course, that sets a new record, and the old record holder, Matt Mangle, friend of the show.
I did get really sad when I saw this. I'm very excited for Liram, and this actually got some play on like CFL News because he was from Canada, 3 down and whatever ran about this. I feel so bad because that was like not that was the only thing that Matt Mangle like held his hat on, but Matt was very proud of his time in the spring league of kicking the field goals, all these things. We talked last week on the show. He is very upset that he is waiting to play for the Alouettes while the spring league is going on. And you figure in a different world, that would have been Matt back there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, these are like sliding. I mean, it's just where all this is going on right now. It's crazy, but that could have been Matt, and he could have been there. And I feel really bad. I'm very happy for Liram, but that is, yes, not good.
Some random notes.
Well, I took some notes. So I watched the Thursday night games. Just a couple notes. We're not going to break down and analyze all the games. We did that last year, and like it doesn't. You don't come to us to like talk about, like the throwing accuracy of whatever. The games were incredibly late. It went till like 1 a.m. East Coast. I thought it was crazy. There was the 2. Good production as always. That was great. I was so surprised. Silvers didn't play at all. Didn't play at all for the Conquerors. That they had Kevin Anderson, who had been in. This was his 3rd stint in the spring league. He played. But they needed more stuff. Like Fox had one promo video that they played, and then they had a couple, they had a really great Luis Perez spotlight piece, but they played it on Thursday. Luis wasn't playing till Saturday. I'm like, wow, think if you had had a social media person in Houston, producing videos, or had people on podcasts doing things that we could share that wouldn't cost you anything, right? Okay, you don't want to hire an intern to come shoot videos. Stick Brandon Silvers or Kevin Anderson or someone on our podcast, and then we could do the video, and then we could send it that way. So I just thought that was really weird. What do you think about the night 1 ratings being below 20,000 people watching this game?
Everything is cyclical. When you don't allow people to promote your product, people aren't going to be aware of your product, and people are not going to check out your product. You're not promoting your product correctly. Call the guys at the FCF. We give them a hard time about their on-field product, the rules, blah, 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 blah. But call the FCF because their marketing is amazing.
Yeah, really good. Really bad. Mike Mitchell said, all 3 of the games on FS1 ranked outside of the top 150, which means that they were under a 0.03 rating, bringing the totals, in the 5-digit area. So we don't know exactly that, but it's like under 20,000. Like it's really bad, really, really terrible. Brian Woods teased on the local Fox station down in, I think he's in Houston right now. Yeah. That there's a big, this is what kills me. He's like, okay, we got a big deal with Fox coming up. They want to be a developmental league for the NFL is I think what they want. They want the NFL to come in, help pay them, whatever. But I'm like, but you didn't do a really good job to prove viewership. You really didn't do a good job. Under 20,000 is really bad. On Saturday, they did better on Fox. 380,000 people watched. And do you see the breakdown here of the ratings? Do you want any thoughts about the TSL with 380,000, any of these other leagues that did a lot better than them?
I mean, people, will say, well, soccer doesn't really draw people in America to watch it. I'm like, 500,000 people watch soccer. I mean, on Fox. Is that Saturday or Sunday?
These are all Saturday. These are all comps. So yeah,
I think the reason why people watch the MLS on Fox is because that was El Tráfico. That's one of the key rivalries in MLS. It's, El Tráfico is number 2, and of course, Seattle Portland's number 1. That's why a lot of people watch the MLS on Fox too. It's like those rivalries draw people in. But for the TSL, not for a sport that is allegedly more popular than soccer, TSL didn't do good numbers. That's unfortunate.
PGA did 2 million. Premier League on NBC did 970. And the long story short about all of this, and then we're almost done with this show. Thank you all for listening. John Hodge, 3 Down Nation, came out with the most asinine tweet I've ever seen in my life. It was lauded by everybody. Even I love it when Farhan even is like, hey, John, you're really off with this. John Hodge tweeted, this was on the Fox, the 380,000. This is a remarkably bad rating, which further reinforces how little appetite there is in the USA for spring football. I hope the CFL front office is paying attention. This is in response to Mike's tweet about the ratings. Thoughts on that before I give mine?
That hurts my head.
Yeah, it really does.
This is such a myopic view. I don't know.
Again, we talked at the top of the show. It's a spring league, whatever. I mean, this had zero promotion. I responded. I go, the fact that 400,000 people happened to stumble upon this league on a Saturday afternoon, that to me is more remarkable than the fact that they only did 380,000. It's the fact that many people just randomly stumbled upon this league, because who even knew it was going on? I mean, they promoted the games on FS1 for Fox. But I'm like, well, that doesn't, you know what I mean? Like you're advertising the Fox game on the smaller network. That's not going to do anything for you. But, you know, I mean, this is like it's a developmental league. It's not, there's no stars, there's no whatever. And a lot of people pointed out that a lot of the CFL games only get like 600,000. Now I know you'll say, okay, Canada has less. That's why you can never win with the CFL fans is they're like, well, Canada has 1/10 the population, so numbers don't matter at all. And you're like, okay, well then I can't have a debate with you. I don't know. But anyway, it was really bad. I go, these are terrible ratings. I said, I think it's horrendous. I wish they would have promoted it. I said this would have been a good sign for the XFL and spring football if this had gone well, and it really didn't. And I'm really sad. I'm very upset and sad that they did not do a better job promoting this because it makes our jobs even harder now trying to back XFL and other alternative football leagues.
I just responded because I didn't see that earlier.
Oh,
I just responded right now. Like, is this a thing north of the border, picking a narrative and not taking any circumstances into account? When a developmental league does no promotion, no one hears that non-existent message and checks out the product.
Yeah. And also, like, I mean, I like to talk about the spring league because I like the players. I know some people don't like to talk about the spring league because they don't pay their players. But I mean, if you don't promote it and I can't help you. I mean, we can't, and I agree. Like I said, they're terrible ratings. I think they're horrendous, but that doesn't mean like the TSL doing now, if they had come out and done like 1 million, I would have been like, sweet, that's great news for the XFL. But it's one of those like them being good would have helped our case. And I don't like that. I don't like taking two sides on the same thing, but like if the ratings had been good, that would have helped our case, but the ratings being bad doesn't hurt our case. Because I do think there are a lot of other circuits, and I don't like that, but that is how it is. Last note, Broncos legend, I don't know this guy, Brandon Marshall, he's joining the Generals. Do you know about him? He's like a former NFL big name.
Yeah, he's been around for quite a while. I mean, great stats, and he's playing in the league?
Yeah, he's joined the Generals. I think he's going to start this weekend.
Very cool.
So.
Good for Brandon. So.
Last note, I got an email if you want Fan Control Football trading cards. I guess you can go and get some Fan Control Football trading cards on their website. That was the only.
I am good on that. But what you need to do, help support the show. I'm going to plug it again. Manscaped.com. Enter the code Markcast. Get 20% off. There you go. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
That's good. Anyway, thank you guys all so much. There was a lot today, but I hope we did a good job. And yeah.
We appreciate all your listenership again. XFLshow.com/review, XFLshow.com/YouTube, and subscribe, leave us a review. We appreciate everybody who tunes in and checks us out every week. And we'll see you here next week. And
you can go to XFLshow.com, but it is the Markcast now. You can go to the Markcast.com/all those things. But the XFL show, all that still works because I'm smart. I didn't get rid of the other ones. But
yeah, I got to get used to that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
The Markcast.com thing. So we appreciate everyone listening, watching on YouTube, and subscribing and leaving your comments, even if they're, tone down the negative ones. So.
Except someone just wrote today, they're like, you guys are idiots or something. I was like, okay, I can't help you with that. I'm sorry. Yeah. Don't watch.
Your opinion, which is in fact. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.